it couldn't be more exciting. This is the Sir Graves Ghastly Weekend, the second annual Sir Graves Ghastly Weekend. Of course, the three Deming brothers came in 2014 and had such a great time. They ended up giving us a very generous endowment to keep a Sir Graves Festival happening every year, and this is the second edition of that. They've also given us some tapes, some videotapes, which are very rare because Channel 2 didn't keep a lot of that stuff. 15 years Sir Graves was on from 1967 to 1983, and yet very few of those episodes survive. So today we're going to be showing a 1982 episode which has not aired anywhere since its original airing in October of 1982. It was a Halloween special called Sir Graves Meets Frankenstein, which is why we're showing the movie Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Though actually he introduces the original Frankenstein, which we showed last year. So it's complicated, but it'll all make sense once the program rolls. So we also have David Deming back with us. Sir Graves, he calls himself Sir Graves' number 2 son, and he is of course responsible for this amazing sculpture behind me, and he'll be talking about that as well, especially for people who weren't here last year.
Yes, I'm David Deming. I'm Sir Graves Ghastly's number 2 son. There are 4 of us boys. 3 of us have been able to come to the last couple of these. I'm the only one that was able to make it this time. But I spent some time in Detroit myself. I went to Cranbrook Academy of Art for graduate school in 68, 69, 70. And that was during the time where Sir Graves was doing very well here in Detroit. Great. One of the reason why I did this piece of sculpture was one of my brothers, Rick, when he heard that he had such a good time at an earlier tribute to Sir Graves, he and his wife decided to give a small bucket of money so that there would be an endowment so that this could happen every year. And when I heard that he did that, I thought, well, I need to do something special. And being the sculptor that I am, decided to do this relief. So this is a 7-foot tall relief that I did of Dad at the graveyard. And along this side are each of the other characters that he would play. He'd do skits between the movies. So this was a lot of fun to do. So it was made in clay originally, and then plaster mold, and then cast in fiberglass. And I found this terrific paint that makes it look like stone. So I thought it came off really nicely. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I can give you a couple stories. When I heard that, while I was a graduate student at Cranbrook, when I heard that Dad was doing these Sir Graves Ghastly reviews before a horror show at a local theater, I said, well, where's the theater? I'll come. I want to see this. So I believe it was the Redford Theater here. I came, it was packed. There must have been 500 kids from 7 to 14 at the time. But I got a seat right in the middle of the auditorium, and it was going to be a half-hour skit, and it was going really well. It was Sir Graves and a well-endowed nurse, and it was just stimulating enough to make the kids laugh. And I looked at my watch and realized that the half hour was almost over. And right at that moment, the 2 doors on each side of the exit doors on the side of the theater opened up and the daylight spilled in, and he had hired 2 Detroit Piston basketball players and put them in Frankenstein outfits. And these guys walked in, well, they had to duck to get through the door. Kids were screaming, running up the aisles, diving into the chairs. I actually wet my pants laughing. It was so good. And it was just an example of what my dad felt would be memorable for these kids to really enjoy the theatrics of it all. He was really into that. Yes, I will tell a few little snippets. I'm going to do a little bit of a parody of Sir Graves and tell a little of his history, and then stories like the one that I just told about my relationship with him especially while I was here in Detroit. You know, my dad would really be loving to know that this is going on after all of these years. I do recall, though, a fellow that was a reporter for a newspaper here in Detroit some years ago when my dad had turned about 85, went to visit him in Cleveland, and after interviewing him, it was one of those "where are they now" kinds of interviews. And at the end of the interview, the fellow pulled out a contract from a television station to actually do the show again. And my dad looked at him and chuckled and said, "Well, you know," he says, "the reason why I retired when I did at 72, he says, I started having nightmares that the coffin wouldn't open." So again, that was just the kind of humor that he had.
Sir Graves Gasly. As you may know, those original shows are mostly lost. There's a few things on YouTube, but they're pretty much the same episodes. What we're showing today is a rare October 1982 Halloween special that has not been shown since that date. No one has seen this since 1982. We're showing the bits in between. We're trying to recreate the TV show. We're going to be showing the bits in between a screen of one of our favorite films, and that, of course, is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And you'll notice that Graves introduces the original Frankenstein. We showed that last year, so we couldn't show that again. Actually, this whole episode is called Sir Graves Meets Frankenstein. So you'll see that in the closing credits. We have this tape today because of the Deming brothers. These are the sons of Sir Graves Gasly, and this is Bud, Rick, and David, who gave us a small stash of tapes that we're going through the process of transferring. Some of them are very old and very hard to work with. This is the first one that we were able to make work, and that's what we're seeing today, this very rare tape. Now, Bud and Rick are not with us today. They were here last year, but we have David Deming is with us today. Giving him to David Deming. David Deming described himself as Sir Graves' #2 son, and he is also the man responsible, the artist responsible, for that amazing sculpture that we have in the Eden Lodge. people to alert you how that works. But that's at intermission. So intermission on stage with David at the statue after the film. Now we always run films with intermission here at the Redwood Theater. At that time, I'm hoping you will visit our concession counter. I know there's a big line, and it'll be open throughout the film. You can get concessions. Larry, the t-shirt guy, will make a shirt in your size. If you give him the order, he can make that shirt during the second half of the program. You'll want to go to our 50-50 raffle counter. I think there's going to be at least a couple $100 cash prizes today, plus a t-shirt from Larry. We have run out of our hot dogs today, but please visit the lobby during intermission. I think that's all I have to say for now. I am going to step aside and begin our program. Thank you for coming. Happy haunting.
So I'd like to tell a few little stories of my relationship with Dad and Sir Graves while I was a graduate student at Cranbrook Academy of Art. Yay, Cranbrook. So I started Cranbrook in 1968, and the day that I handed in my application, they had a category where you had to fill in your father's occupation. And me being the guy that I am, I wrote vampire. So I'd been in the studio for about a month, and one of the instructors there at Cranbrook came up to me and said, "Emmy, is your father on television in Detroit?" And I said, "Yeah." "Is he Sir Graves Ghastly, the vampire?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "The people in the office are still trying to figure out why you would do that." So anyway, about a month later, I heard that Dad was doing Saturday matinees where he'd do a half-hour skit before the theater would show a horror movie. And so I asked him where the next one was going to be. I'd like to come and see it. So anyway, I believe it was here at the Redford Theater. So I came. There had to be 400 kids from 7 years old to 14 years old. So I was the biggest kid in the audience. So I was sitting right out there in the middle. And it was a half-hour skit, and it was really quite funny. So Graves in this full outfit with a cape. And he was doing this skit with a well-endowed nurse. And it wasn't too sexually oriented, just enough to titillate the kids so they were having a good time. So I looked at my watch and realized that the half hour was almost up, and all of a sudden, the two exit doors on each side of the stage here opened up. He had hired 2 Detroit Pistons basketball players and put them in Frankenstein outfits. These guys walked in going, kids were running up the aisle, diving under the seats, screaming, and I wet my pants. It was great. So, where I lived while I was a graduate student was in Bloomfield Hills, where Cranbrook is. But my living situations, my wife and I lived in the gatehouse of a vice president of the Ford Motor Company. I was the grounds caretaker. And one day, Dad decided that he was going to come up to see our first son, which was his first grandson, for the first time. And so he was going to drive up after one of these matinee performances. And I was out working in this very formal courtyard in front of the Eichema's mansion there in Bloomfield Hills. And Mrs. Eichema was out there. At the time, she was in her late 60s, a very handsome-looking woman with one of those beehive hairdos that up to about here. And she was very formal. And she was telling me where she wanted me to plant some new plants. And all of a sudden, we could hear a car pull into her courtyard. She never liked it when people pulled into her courtyard that she wasn't expecting. And I looked up at her, and her eyes were rolled up. And right as she started to turn around, my dad jumped out of the passenger side of the car in full wardrobe and makeup. He jumped up and he said, "Good afternoon." Mrs. Eichema screamed, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get fired now. So after everybody calmed down a little bit, I got to introduce her to Dad. And he kissed her hand, went for her neck, and she said no. So after our visit, Dad left, and I went back out to work in the garden. Mrs. Eichema came out. And when she saw me, she said, "You know, your dad scared the bejeebies out of me, but I do watch him on Friday nights." Anyway, there were numerous times that I can recall. Dad told me one. Actually, this happened, the first tribute, about 8 years ago. My brothers and I were in the back of the auditorium talking to people and signing autographs. And this gentleman came up and said, when I was 5 years old, my parents took me to one of Sir Graves' Saturday events. And I was standing in line, and it was my turn, and I was about 10 feet away from Sir Graves. It was my turn to go up there, and I was nervous as hell, and my parents kept pushing me, and I was going like this, and finally, Sir Graves turned and did his, I dropped everything, ran out the door. So that had a great effect on a lot of people, kids and older people. One other story that relates to my dad's sense of humor, well before he did the Sir Graves show in Cleveland, he did an afternoon movie show for 10 years called 1 O'Clock Playhouse, so he was the master of ceremonies. And he would always talk to the audience between shots of the movie. And one time he got a letter from a woman that said her mother thinks that he can see her, and she dresses up every day before 1 o'clock and sits in front of the television and talks to my dad, during the show. So my dad wrote her back and asked her what she's going to be wearing on Monday, whatever the date was, and what her name was and everything, and it was her birthday. And so that day, Dad opens the show, and immediately after he does his regular routine, said, "Oh, Jane, keep wearing that dress. You look so good in blue. And by the way, happy birthday. We all want to wish you a happy birthday." And Jane looked at her daughter and said, "See, I told you." Okay, so turn off the lights. Pull down the shade. Curl up on the couch with a warm, fuzzy blanket. And oh, by the way, turn off our electronic devices. Thank you.
Sir Graves meets Frankenstein. And you know what that means. The original Frankenstein. Boris Karloff, May Clark, and Colin Clyde, and a great supporting cast. By the way, a lot of you have been out trick-or-treating tonight. Some came to my gate. And I just wanted to warn you youngsters who may be watching tonight, if you haven't already done it, make sure you have mom or dad or an older person in the house check those goodies before you eat them. Okay? Good enough. Okay,